This is Dr. Von Hansen from Washburn University with some tips on how to prepare the snare excerpts for the 2021 KMEA auditions. The fourth etude here has a lot more technical considerations that are a lot more intricate than we had on number 13. So let's dig into the little micro aspects of this etude. The first thing that I want to talk about is this four-stroke rough. So we have one in the first bar, and then we have it on the 7th and 8th line. The first time it's fortissimo and it's introducing the whole piece, and then in 7 and 8 they're softer and really more in the middle of the flow of the music. So I play these slightly different. I do a different sticking, and I play with how open the grace notes are. The first one is an introduction to the whole piece. It's fortissimo. You have a lot of space after it. So I open up the grace notes here, and I play this with an alternating sticking. I play right, left, just because I'm more comfortable starting these with my right hand. A lot of people will play left, right. Either way is fine. But those would sound like this. And so what I'm talking about playing these more open, if I play it real tight, we get one sound. If I play it open, we get a different sound. We get some more width, so it serves a different purpose. So you can decide how wide that is for how you want to phrase this musically. This is a difficult thing to get going at first, so I have a little exercise for you that I'll put up on the screen to get this going. I think of it in 4/4 with a quarter note on the first beat and eighth note triplets on beat 4. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4 palette, 1, 2, 3, 4 palette, 1, and then we just speed that up. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. So as my tempo increases, and I would do this with a metronome, I would increase the metronome tempo. I want to make sure that I still have even triplets, and I'm putting an accent on the last note. There's a written accent here, but usually in these four-stroke roughs, the last note is emphasized either way. So that's how I do the loud one. On lines 7 and 8, we have the soft four-stroke rough, and it's hard to do in place. It's plain soft snare drum is one of the hardest things we have to do as a percussionist because there's very little micro adjustments in our fingers. So to play that as an alternating, it's really difficult for my hands, so I do what a lot of people call a French rough, which is where we put a double stroke in the middle there. So I play it right, left, right. Okay, so you have to work on making sure that all of those grace notes are even, so you don't get an uneven double. So you have to work on that, the pressure in your finger a little bit, but it's easier to place these. I can play them softer and faster. If I have to do four-stroke roughs at a fast tempo, I do these. If I have to do them at a soft tempo, I do it. So I'm also playing at the edge, as I discussed in the last part. When I'm playing anything with a P or lower, any piano dynamic is at the edge. Any dynamic mezzo forte and above with an F is going to be in the center, so I can use the drum to my advantage. So I'm able to place these a little bit better, and it's really beneficial in line 8 where we have to play a single, and then we have to play 3 grace notes, then we have to play a single, then we have to play 2 grace notes, and then we play a single and we play a flam. We want to make sure that we actually hear 3, 2, 1 in the grace notes and not just buzz, less buzz, flam. You want to make sure that they're clear. So some things that I do on the first bar of line 8 is, once again, I play all the eighth notes with my right hand. I play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm filling in those grace notes. So for the rough, I'm playing my French rough, right, left, right. And then my drag, I'm doing a left, right. And then my flam, right hand flam. So that sounds like this. I'll put the notation up on the screen with some sticking. Now let's talk about these flams on the second line. This is a difficult passage because we're having to do dynamics with flams, and it can change the distance between our grace note and our primary and get really out of control. One thing that I do to make sure that this is consistent for me is I play all of the primary notes, so the non-grace note part of the flam. I play all the primary notes with my right hand. If I'm going to play the second bar, that's just this. I'm using the dynamics on the edge, but I'm also doing the stick height. When I put in the flam, I'm not actually crescendoing the grace note. I keep it down the whole time. I move it with my right so it makes the same texture on the drum, but I'm not raising it with my forte flams. I'm getting the dynamics from my top hand and letting my grace note hand stay relaxed. So that's down here like this. This is the second bar. Okay, so you can see that I'm moving my right hand up dynamically, and then when I go to the last bar of that line, it starts up, comes down, comes back up to get us that fortissimo accent. If I play them all with my right hand, I'm really consistent here, and I can change my dynamics with just the stick height. One of the sections that players often have difficulty with is this lines 5 and 6 because of these offbeat 16th notes where we're playing in all these spaces. There's a real tendency to get off in time, either compress those and go too fast or open it up and go too slow. The number one thing that you need to do is play this with a metronome. You should be playing all of these with a metronome, play them at a slower tempo, build them up. But this is really important to play with a metronome to really make sure that you are being truthful and consistent and we're not moving time in here. It's really not beneficial to strike at each of those ands and really get tense and go and. What I'm doing is I'm floating over the bar and I'm trying to see where I'm going to land. For instance, in the second bar, we have those offbeat 16th notes on the and of 4 and the and of 5. But what I'm aiming for is that last beat, so big beat 6. So I'm counting 4 and 5 and 6 and a 1. And I'm not counting 4 and 5 and, I'm counting 4 and 5 and 6 and a 1. 4 and 5 and 6 and a 1. So my hands float across that. We can actually add in the and of 3 before that. 1, 2, and 3, and 1, and 2, and 3, and a 1. So I'm trying to land on 3. I call this hydroplaning. So hydroplaning is where you're on the road and you go over some water and the wheels get kind of crazy. If you overcorrect, you slide out. But if you just kind of follow the skid and look at where you're going to land, you come out okay. So you can think about that. You get to this difficult part, but you're looking at where you're going to end up instead of really focusing on every single note. It gets me really tight and I have a tendency to slow down. So I'm looking forward all the time. Let's talk about some control in our dynamics here. There is big changes in dynamics throughout. I've already been talking about moving from the center to the edge. The most difficult part is this giant jump in dynamic on line 11. What we need to dig into is the downstroke. So a downstroke is a stroke that starts up and it ends down. So in order to do this, we're applying a little bit of back fingers, because if you don't do back fingers, the stick rebounds. But if you do use your back fingers, then it keeps the stick from bouncing up. So I'm not squeezing so hard that I get all this shock up my arm and I get a dead stroke. Just applying just a tiny bit to keep that stick down. So we have to go from fortissimo, 3 Fs, to pianissimo. So we really need to get those down. I also need them to go to the edge. So I'm doing a downstroke that moves forward. And I end up in my edge. If you can see on my drum, I draw a circle in the middle where it sounds the best to my ear for my forte dynamics, and I draw a circle at the edge, as close to the edge as I can, where I still hear the snares. If you play too close to the edge, you don't hear the snare buzz. So I mark on my head where those are. I'm moving from my middle circle to my front circle with a downstroke. So after I play those fortissimo strokes with those housetop accents, I'm ready to play the pianissimo. So I'm playing that with 1 and 2 and downstroke, 1 E and a 2 and 3 and. So I'm playing downstrokes on those last ones where I'm leaving the first ones coming up. So that would look like this, real slow. You can see it comes down and forward, and I have that control. At full tempo, I can get to the edge, I can have my articulation, I have that control. You can do the opposite with an upstroke at the end of the pianissimo. So you're getting up to that fortissimo afterwards. So using downstrokes and upstrokes, moving from the center to the edge can really give us control over those big dynamic changes that he's asking for here. This final bar is something that we have to really make sure we count well, or it's very noticeable to the judge if that last note is not in the right place, if they're counting along with you. What I need to do for myself is I need to take out the roll and think about what the skeleton is. And really, if you think about the skeleton, it's the same rhythm twice. 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a, and. It's two 30-second notes, 1 E and a 2 E and a, and then it lands on the and of 3, and then it does 1 E and a 2 E and a, and. We're just rolling the second half of it. 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a, and. Also notice that there's no articulation at the end of the roll, so it's not a roll tied to a singled note. It's just a roll that ends by itself. So you want to make sure you end that roll with a buzz. So my last left hand is a buzz here. It sounds like this. There's several other things to think about on this etude and the other one past what I covered on this video. So if you have more questions or you want to reach out to have a lesson, please feel free to contact me. Right after this video, you'll see my credentials where you can email me and ask any questions you have, set up a virtual or in-person lesson. I'll be happy to work with anybody who reaches out to me. Thank you.